Hello everyone, this is the struggling grad student. I wanted to make a short introduction for this video just to give you a heads up as to what this video is about and why I'm making this video and why it's important to me. Because it's not like my other videos. All my videos are pretty much about mathematics and the graduate student life, and I did a series of interviews a few months ago of people that study mathematics with me in the department, and I wanted to get their perspective on the whole day-to-day grind, so to speak, and see what kind of tidbits of information, advice that they have that maybe are useful to people that watch my channel. But I wanted to talk to people outside of mathematics and people that I thought were really interesting. So you probably don't know this. I don't really talk about it much. But when it comes to video games, I used to be more into them, but I was never really like a serious gamer or anything like that. There's a lot of video games I haven't even played. I think in the upcoming video I may mention, I don't know if it's edited out, but I've never really played like the Call of Duty games, Halo, or anything like that. So I can't really call myself someone who loves video games, but I really liked the Dark Souls series of video games that have been popular for the last 10 years. And I got into them when I was in college, getting my bachelor's degree, because I don't know, I didn't really have like an outside social life too much, because to succeed in college you really do have to, you can get your degree in college and still have a social life, but your grades aren't probably going to be the greatest. And to me, getting really good grades, graduating summa cum laude, was important to me. And to do that, you kind of have to get straight A's in everything. You might get forgiveness for 1B, but needless to say, I was always studying and I was always trying to get the good grades and this, that, and the other, so pretty much everything revolved around school. And like my one moment of, I guess, escape from the day-to-day school life was the Dark Souls franchise of video games, because I don't know what it is about those games I like so much. I think it's just because there was nothing else like it out there, and it is kind of like its own unique thing. Although, how would I know? Because I don't play too many video games. But there's something about them that has a lasting appeal that, 10 plus years later, we're still talking about it. There's still content being made. Plus, the community of it was also pretty interesting, which is how I discovered my next guest in the series of interviews. So, this interview is with a YouTuber. His name is Prod. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his YouTube channel, but Prod kind of got started making videos with respect to Call of Duty when it was really popular, but I discovered them after he left Call of Duty and started making Dark Souls content, which is, I think, where his second big boom in popularity came from. So his YouTube channel is far, far, far more popular than mine, and I have been watching him, I think, since 2017. It's somewhere in there. It's when I started playing the games for the first time. And I thought his channel was really interesting. I thought he was really funny. He's also similar in age to me, which I thought was also interesting, because it's kind of like, we're going through life at the same age, kind of seeing the same stuff. So I was really interested in his perspective. And one day, I just catch a random stream he was doing on YouTube. And I was in his chat, and I asked him if, he did interviews. I was just curious to see if he would read it. And to my surprise, he did read it, and he says, I don't know, he said he didn't really do interviews, and he said to ask him more questions, that I should DM him on Twitter, and I didn't have a Twitter at the time. So, long story short, I do formally reach out to him, and about like a week, I don't know about a week, I think maybe it was more like a day. I think like a day later, after he thought about it, to my surprise, he agreed to speak with me, which I was absolutely thrilled by, because I really do like his videos. I think that he's very interesting if you haven't checked out his videos before. So after this video, maybe if you're interested in the Soulsborne games, you can check out his channel. But he did agree to speak with me, and me and him actually ended up talking for an hour, which is what this interview is about. And this interview was recorded a long time ago, and I do apologize if he might watch this, but I do apologize for how long it did take for the video to come out, because I wanted it to come out at a good time so that the video would be successful. my last couple of weeks studying or wrapping up the semester has just been chaotic. So I wanted to give it justice. I wanted to make sure that when I did upload the video, that I was giving it its best foot forward, so to speak. I know that might not seem very obvious, but there's a lot that goes on behind these videos before they come out, believe it or not. So anyway, that's all I had to say about this following interview that you're about to listen to. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did at speaking with him. And yeah, I'll let the video go. Thank you. Very good. So I would like to upload this to the channel on my my struggling grad student channel because I'm kind of on the fence about it because I know a lot of the people there are there for mathematics and grad school in general, but I really just wanted to talk to you because I think your channel is very interesting. I've been listening to your channel for a very long time. I think 2018 is when I started.
Oh, awesome. That's a long time.
Yeah, it's well, that's kind of when I started playing Dark Souls because I've been in college pretty much my whole life. And you got to do things outside of just studying or else you'll, drive yourself insane. And
Yeah.
Dark Souls was one of those things that I just got really into. So I think most of these questions that I'm going to ask you are going to be basically about three things. Your YouTube career, like how you managed to grow your channel. I'm kind of really interested in that. And also what you did, well, not what you did, but just what your thoughts are in general about the Soulsborne, FromSoft catalog of games, because I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. And then just like maybe some information about you. Obviously, you don't have to share anything that you're uncomfortable with.
Yeah, I'm a pretty open book anyway, so you throw out whatever you want.
Okay, very good. I guess we'll start with how you got started in YouTube, because you've been uploading videos to YouTube for a very long time, I think. When did you upload your first video to the channel that you run now?
That was probably pretty close to when I started the channel, which was in 2010.
2010.
So it's been 14 years, I think. Wow. So I had been making videos for like half my life. I was thinking about it recently.
I know you've been doing daily uploads for a really long time now because you really don't miss a day. And I think part of that's because it's your job, your source of income. That's a pretty good reason to keep uploading. But in the beginning, like in 2010, because me and you are about the same age, right? Where I'm like 28, 29.
Yeah, I'm 28.
Okay, so in the very beginning, so 2010, we'd be like 15 at the time. So what kept you uploading back then? Did you do daily uploads, or how did that work? What was it like?
So in the beginning, I used to play Call of Duty. So completely different than like now. Mm-hmm. But it kind of taught me to make content out of like just random things. So it would mainly be like me talking, and I would just kind of, babble on for a little bit. I don't think I did daily uploads like really early on. It took me a little bit into making Call of Duty videos to try to do daily videos. But I felt like it was just like too hard with Call of Duty. There was less content for that to make daily videos back in the day. But what motivated me, I guess, was just like I used to see the people who started before me and like who inspired me to do videos, like CNNers and Hutch and people like this that maybe some people will remember them. But they were like making daily videos, and I was like, oh, maybe that's like the smart thing to do to make videos.
Mm-hmm. Now this might be a bit of a shocker, but I kind of grew up in that same era of video games where Call of Duty was pretty much the most famous video game on planet Earth at that time in 2010.
Oh yeah, it was everywhere.
You couldn't get away from it. I mean, it started out as like a simple World War II video game, and then they started throwing in zombies and Nazis and all this weird stuff.
Yeah.
But the weird fact is I've never actually played Call of Duty, not once.
What? Really?
I know.
That's kind of wild.
Well, okay, I kind of wanted to ask this question at the very end, but because we're in this area right now, You switched from Call of Duty to the Soulsborne, Elden Ring, whatever we're calling it now, genre of video games. What do you think it is about Call of Duty, which I don't really know anything about, but I do have some thoughts about Dark Souls? What is so special about them that people keep coming back? Because a lot of video games are like flashes in the pan where they're really, really popular in that moment, like given that year, and then by next year, people kind of forget about them and they don't ever return to them. But FromSoft seems to have this formula that keeps people coming back. Like Dark Souls 1, I think, came out in 2011, and we're still like addicted to that formula. So what do you
Oh
think it
yeah.
is about Soulsborne and Call of Duty that kept people coming back, in your opinion?
I think for sure they're both pretty similar in terms of like offering a certain, I guess, feeling that they have. I feel like Call of Duty has lost that more than Souls games. And it's mainly because Souls games have used, as you know, kind of like the same formula for their combat for a quite a long time. Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't stray much from Dark Souls 1. You know, they add speed, they add weapons and different abilities and stuff, which kind of keeps it fresh. So it's almost like you're always coming back to see what new stuff they added to this type of combat. I guess it's just unique, you know, like other games have tried it, like a Lords of the Fallen have tried it, but it never feels the same as Dark Souls does. If you have played any of like Lords of the Fallen or Lies of P, which are great games, but they just they don't have that same feeling that the Souls games do for sure.
Do you think that it's the combat that keeps you specifically coming back? Because in the very beginning, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really much of a gamer. I am a casual, I will admit it. I but the Soulsborne games, I remember just seeing them and just it grabbed my attention in a way that other games didn't. Like if I would watch a trailer for God of War, no disrespect, but it's like it looks cool, but it's not something that I really want to pick up. But there was something about seeing Dark Souls 3 on on the internet somewhere. It's just like I want to learn more about this. So I think in the beginning it was the world building, like the aesthetic, like it had a certain look to it that no one else had. And then when I started playing it, that changed. I started playing it for different reasons. I think probably the combat, the boss fights in particular, I think was what really got me hooked. But
Yeah.
yeah, years later, I still play the games, but the bosses I don't think are the real reason I play this anymore. So what do you think?
Yeah, I would say the combat is one of the big reasons. I feel like I don't get it in a lot of video games. The bosses, seeing what bosses come back, the difficulty, like a lot of people is something that will throw people off, but I tend to enjoy the struggle.
Yeah.
I like, you know, it feels like you're working towards something. Like if you struggle on a boss for like 2 hours, which you know might be kind of hard for some people, especially like you, like you know, you're in college and everything. You know, it's hard for people to put that amount of time into like one enemy, but then that satisfaction of finally like overcoming that is something that you don't see a lot in video games these days. And I think that's what probably keeps bringing me back to the Soul series and excited for every new release that they have.
Like every new installment, you're just dying to see how they reinvent the formula a little bit. Like what did they change? What did they tweak? That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
what new, you know, Ashes of War were a big thing they added for, or I guess like Art of Wars for Dark Souls 3 and Ashes of War for this game. And you know, they always seem to add something new that makes
Mhm.
things feel fresh.
So since we're talking about this, these are questions actually I say for the end, but we're talking about them now, which is absolutely fine. But uh, what do you think? Okay, so let me start it here. What changes would you make to the formula to help improve future installments? Have you given any thought to this? Like, I know you're not an employee at FromSoft, but I am curious. You have played a lot of PvP. You've played a
Yeah.
lot of mods, particularly, which I absolutely loved. I've been rewatching Adventures of the Lost, or not Lost, but Worst Invader.
Oh, thank you.
Those are some of the I really do like those videos in particular. I think helped keep me going when I was playing Dark Souls for the very first time.
Oh, I
Uh,
love like the situations. Invasions are probably like I would say the most unique thing to Souls games
from
for sure.
Do you think the PvP? Okay, so PvP versus PvE. You seem more like a PvP kind of guy. You like the co-op and the invasions and dueling more.
Yeah, it kind of fluctuates for sure. I in the beginning I was primarily PvP for Dark Souls 3 and then I it kind of stagnated for me and got kind of boring. So I moved to mods and then I became a PvE guy. So I'm actually like I guess I wouldn't even know what people would know me as or like think of me as now, like somebody who plays mods and PvE or back in the day when I used to do PvP and did Adventures of the Worst Invader. Yeah, I don't
Mhm.
know actually.
So what? So because you have a lot of experience playing PvP and playing the mods, what advice do you think you could give, if you could give anything for FromSoft? Like, hey, I would add this or take this away to help improve future installments. What do you have you given any thought to this?
Um, a little bit, I guess. I guess from the PvP side of things, I would love if from software, I feel like they do updates and stuff like that and kind of care about the PvP, at least to a certain extent.
Hmm.
Invaders, I feel like they have a different outlook now on invaders. They almost like it almost seems like sometimes they have a vendetta against invaders, like it used to be 3v3 in Dark Souls 3, so you could have like three invaders versus three people that are like hosts and phantoms, and you kind of go all out war. And now in Elden Ring, it doesn't
I don't
seem
think you
like
can
it has
invade
that.
unless someone has like a phantom with them already, right?
Oh yeah, you cannot invade anybody that's by themselves unless they specifically used an item to get invaded by themselves. So
Hmm.
you can only invade people who are doing co-op. So most of the time, you're going up against 2, 3 people as one invader. I would say that like we need a couple more tools as invaders. Give us some things that stop them from summoning. Stuff like that. That
Hmm.
I think that would be a thing I would hope they would maybe do as well for like the DLC coming up for Elden Ring.
Yeah, so Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Yes.
How hyped were you when you watched it for the very first time? Like, did it
Oh man.
deliver? Did it deliver?
Ooh. It it hit.
Yeah,
It did what I wanted it to do, and it hit because it's been so long since they announced it. I think it had been like a whole
it's like two
year.
years.
Yeah, since they even were like, it's happening. They posted a picture and like, yeah, it's happening, and then it's been a year since that picture,
What do you
and
think of the?
it
Sorry.
delivered.
What do you think of the price tag on it?
Oh, the $40. Ooh. I
Plus,
guess it
like all the
depends.
amenities, you could get.
Yeah, it depends. We're gonna have to wait and see when it comes out. I think it'll be big. They've kind of confirmed it's bigger than like
Limgrave.
the whole first area in Elden Ring, which is, in my opinion, if you do everything and you take your time with it, especially like for the first time, that was like a 35-hour area, like 40-hour area.
Right.
I think we'll get beyond that with the DLC.
It feels more like a spin-off or like a maybe a sequel instead. At least that's the vibe that I got from watching the trailer, because I remember when the trailer dropped, I was in my office and I think I had gotten done at my measure theory seminar. I had left and came back to the office, and I heard that there was an announcement for the Elden Ring Shadow of the Earth Tree trailer. So I pretty much shut the door. I was like, okay, no one talk to me for 5 minutes while I watch this.
Yeah. By the way, the difference in like you coming, what was it, measure theory?
Measure theory seminar.
Do you cuss here?
Do I cuss on the channel?
Yeah.
You can if you want. I think I've cussed before, but I don't generally do it. But if you want to, go ahead.
Okay, because I was just gonna say you're probably smart as shit, and like that's why I kind of wanted to do this because it seemed like an interesting conversation to have with somebody that is probably a lot smarter than I am. So how's school been going for you? How's work and all that?
Well, I'll give you. Okay, so it feels weird to. All right, so in high school, I did want to kind of ask you a few questions about what you were like in high school.
Yeah,
Okay,
of course.
to directly answer your question, it's going okay. It's going a lot better now than it has been for the past 3 years.
That's
But
good.
yeah. So really, what I did was in high school. Um, I was always a pretty good student, mostly because my parents, mostly my dad, was involved in my school. My dad was at one point a middle school science teacher, but by the time I was in school, he was no longer a teacher. He was a contractor building houses, but he was very involved with my education. So the education system was pretty much everything that I knew. Like I really didn't know anything else outside of that. Like sports, didn't play sports. Music, I can play guitar, but I'm not like I was never in like the band. I didn't do extracurriculars. I'm kind of curious to know if you did anything outside of school. Like, did you play sports, for example?
No, not really. I was a chubby middle schooler and high schooler who didn't really get into sports too much.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I had been playing video games and stuff before. Video games, I guess, were my outlet, my like like thing I did outside of school. Started off super young making videos at 14, so
Mhm.
not really a lot of time for sports and stuff, but I would go out and like hang out with friends, and I spend most of my childhood outside.
I wish I had done more in high school, like hanging out with friends and playing sports or just, but I didn't have the interest and I didn't have like a force driving me to do that. In my household, it was pretty much all about grades. That was it. It was just get good grades, and then everything will happen magically for you. Well, it turns out that's not really true.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, so I was pretty much killing it in high school. I felt like I was on top of the world, like I was smarter than everyone else. Kind of, I didn't really, advertise it, but that was like a belief that I had. And then when I got to college, university level, I started to feel a lot of pushback, like, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. But
yeah,
you have to swallow your pride and figure out, like, okay, I got to make sure I get at least a good grade this semester, because at that point it just becomes all hard work.
yeah.
And I
That's
had,
interesting too, and that's a good thing to have, to not go somewhere where you feel like you're not the smartest person, because there's room to improve then.
yeah, you definitely don't want to fall into that pitfall of being like, I think it's called Superman syndrome, where you think you're indestructible, but really you're just pretty much average. Even if you are average, if you're quote unquote smart, you're probably just a little bit above average. Like there's some really freaky smart people out there that are able to just figure stuff out by just looking at it. And I knew what my weaknesses were in mathematics because I liked it all, but mathematics was my favorite because I feel like if you're good at math, that's like, well, it's this is my own personal opinion, but it's like of all the subjects you could master, mastering mathematics seems like the greatest victory in my book. Plus, I also just like it, but that's just me. I don't know how other people feel about it. For some people, it's biology. But at one point in time, I decided that I really wanted to get a PhD so that I could become, you know, my name is Vincent Shaw. I think I mentioned that in the messages we sent back and forth. But I
Yeah.
really wanted to be Dr. Shaw because I just liked that title. It's just like even if I died the next day, or even like the day before, I was like, at least I did it.
That's
I
a
had
pretty cool goal though, like to have something in your mind and then just be like, I want that. It seems like you're, well on your way to doing it. So that's good.
yeah, it was brutal. I don't want to get too. My channel pretty much understands everything, what I went through to get to the point I'm at now. That's why I said the last 3 years have been pretty rough. But right now we're doing pretty good. But I want to get back to you.
Okay.
So in high school, you said you weren't really much into sports. What kind of student were you in high school?
Oh, I was terrible. And you're gonna probably hate this, and this is instantly gonna throw off maybe a lot of
You don't
viewers,
like
but
mathematics.
no, I don't like mathematics at all. And actually I didn't finish high school.
Oh,
I
really?
Yeah, school just it was not for me. I was not a good student, and then there was a certain point where I kind of stopped going, like while I look at it in retrospect and I wish that I would have finished, I like to think of it as, things kind of work out and go the way they're supposed to. in my life personally. If I would have finished high school, maybe I would have gone to. I don't think I would have gone to like a proper college. It probably would have been like community college because I knew from a young age we can't afford that. You know,
Yeah.
like I grew up very poor. You know, I had food in my stomach and everything, but like in terms of like the way people see wealth, I was very low on the spectrum of that. So I knew college wasn't really an option for me. So I didn't care much about high school. You know, I didn't care about grades. Therefore, I just stopped going.
Did you ever get scared when you were in high school thinking about like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do when this is over?
Oh yeah, it was a pretty overwhelming like feeling
And
of
I can
feeling I
imagine.
should finish it, you know?
Do you think you'll ever get like a GED or try and go back to college, or what do you, where are you at right now thinking about education, or do you think you may, well, I don't want to ask too many questions at once, but do you think you'll get a GED?
Um, I'm certain there'll be a point where I maybe like have to. Maybe if like because I guess YouTube is so fickle and you never know how things are gonna end up, right? There might be a certain point where I need to get my GED. But I don't really have any plans for it now. I would love to at some point if I have time to kind of sit down and do that. Probably not college though. No, like no
You don't
type
want to
of
do college?
no, I don't I personally for me I don't see a reason for it for myself.
Well, if you want a bachelor's degree in mathematics, I can
I
hook
know
you up with
exactly who to
all
go
the
to.
solutions.
Yeah.
I have done them all. Like I set forth a goal for myself to do 10,000 problems and analysis, and I didn't really even get close, but I did about 2,000. I did about
Wow.
2,000.
That's pretty incredible.
It was spread out over 2 years, and some of the problems are pretty easy, but other ones were very brutally difficult. I had to do that because when you're in a, like in my PhD program, for example, you take these sequence courses for the very first year, and then at the end of the first year, you take these things called qualifying exams, which basically says you are competent enough in your field of research that you can actually do the research. You can go to an advisor and talk to them and figure out what kind of open problem that you want to tackle and then write your dissertation about. Well, at my university, one of the qualifiers is so brutally difficult. The guy that writes it is easily, I don't know what he's doing at this university, but he's Harvard level. Like
Wow.
he's probably Fields Medal worthy, which is equivalent to like a Nobel Prize in mathematics. Everyone at the university understands that this guy means business. And when I met him for the first time, he teaches all my classes, by the way. So, so
That's
he's
not intimidating
really,
at all.
no, he is something else. I don't want to go into too great a detail because I still want to focus on you. But just to finish up, um, that test he writes is so brutally difficult. Pretty much nobody passes the first time, including myself. Like I did maybe 250 problems, and I read maybe 3 or 4 books on the subject of measure theory, and it just didn't, like I think I straight up failed that test. I don't know what my score was, but it was less than 50%. It had to have been. And that was a big gut punch because I was always a straight A student in high school. And in college I was, killing it too, but I was working really hard. But this was just like, you're not as good as you think you are. So, obviously you walk away from that thinking like, I did all this work for what, really?
Yeah.
And you can do one of two things. You walk away, which a lot of people have done in the program. They've just walked away. They just feel like they can't do it. And then other people just say, well, we got to just start over and just build up from it. So over the course of that year, I picked up some more books, found some more problems, accumulated more practice. That's where the 2,000 problems came from. And eventually I did pass it on my second attempt, but at the expense of 2 years being burned. And now I
That's
have to
pretty good
figure out,
though. Because imagine
yeah,
how many people don't pass on that second attempt. You know, like you took exactly what probably he wanted. I'd imagine in his head he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows most people aren't going to pass, and the people who pass the second time or the third time and keep trying and then eventually pass are the
mhm.
people who he probably cares to pay more attention to, and he knows are probably going to make it. You know.
He is weird, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how hard you try. Like, he'll give you a stupidly hard homework problem that he knows how to do, and if you solve it, he'll be like, "Oh, yeah, well, it's a homework problem. Come back when you actually have something that I don't know how to do." It's like he's got so high standards,
Yeah.
which I respect, but at the same time, it's like, why do I have to prove the Riemann hypothesis to get a PhD almost? Okay. So what did we talk about? So we mentioned Shadow of the Erd Tree, but we didn't go too far in depth with it. But you said that it did live up to the hype. What do you think you will enjoy most from Shadow of the Erd Tree? Do you think that you'll enjoy the bosses, the soundtracks, which we didn't really mention, but that's another thing that keeps me coming back to the Soulsborne games, just the amazing soundtracks? Or is it like the weapons and armor and locales? What do you think will be the the thing we remember most on our first playthrough of the DLC?
I think for sure the exploration side of things. I loved getting lost in Elden Ring, playing it for the first time. Finding a random like corner and then realizing there's a cave in there and then you could go in and there's a boss in there. I think the world, the new world that we're gonna see, will probably be the thing that I am looking forward to the most, and like finding all the little nooks and crannies and secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that we get some crazy bosses as well. For sure, that's the second thing I would be most looking forward to.
Do you think that one boss that they teased in the trailer, I believe his name is Mesmer the Impaler, do you think that that boss is the new Melania with the DLC, or do you think that it's a what's it called, a red herring, that the real challenge is something that we haven't even seen yet? Because in a recent video you made, you mentioned that we didn't even see Orphan of Kos, like even mentioned once in the Bloodborne DLC, and he turned out to be like the real challenge of the Old Hunters DLC. Do you think that they've done that again here, or do you think Mesmer is going to be the new Melania? Like he's the pinnacle of challenge.
Um, I would say he is probably more of a red herring for like final boss territory, because I think a lot of people have like asked me like, oh, you think he's gonna be the final boss? And I don't think he's gonna be the final boss. I don't think they've shown him, but I do think that they're building him up to be like this DLC's Melania, like the challenge. It seems to me like that. Yeah.
I see. Um, so where do you think FromSoft is going to go next with their next, well, title, their entry? Because we saw in Dark Souls they've kind of exhausted the medieval fantasy type setting, and then in Bloodborne they did this more gothic Victorian England, but not even England, but like European, this gothic European aesthetic. Lovecraftian, I think, is another word they throw around.
Mm-hmm.
And then Elden Ring has kind of got this. I'm kind of curious, what do you think about Elden Ring in comparison to, let's just say Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne? Like, how do you think it stands up? Like, is it on the same level, or maybe one or the other is a little bit better? What do you think?
Oh, I love Elden Ring. I would say Elden Ring's probably my personal like favorite video game it like ever made now. I feel like it feels almost like a culmination of everything they've done so far. Like the best of everything. I think they've done it really well. As to where it's going in the future, man, I really want them to explore more of that gothic Bloodborne style, the Lovecraftian side of things, space horror and all that. I would love for them to kind of go deeper into that.
We've been kind of asking for Bloodborne, like a Bloodborne sequel, for years now, and you may not actually know this. Actually, why would you know this? But I had a channel before my graduate student vlog, I guess you can call it, because that's what I do on the channel. I make videos about my time in the PhD program, allow people to use it as like some sort of reference or whatever, it doesn't matter. But before that, I had a channel dedicated to Bloodborne videos, and I would do daily uploads of Bloodborne content, even though
Oh
this was
wow, no, that's awesome.
yeah, I did it. That's actually where I started in YouTube. So I started in YouTube because I was really bored and I didn't have anything to do. This is also during the COVID years where we're just
Oh
inside all the
yeah.
time. And that's when I really started to get into Bloodborne. And I was like, I really got into blood gem farming because I noticed there wasn't a whole lot of videos on YouTube that really explain how the chalice dungeons work. And I did a bunch of research on Google and the forums that list it all out. And it's pretty complicated, but I sat down and I read through all of it because I was really interested in maximizing the damage I could get from the weapons in the game. And that's where my Bloodborne channel came from. It was more or less blood gem guides. So I made
Right.
guides about how to
Those are
optimize.
extensive now too. Like people, I think there is there is a Google Doc out there now that exists that has literally every single dungeon that exists
Yeah,
in Bloodborne.
I found that document. So I just basically made videos about that document. So it's
That's
like,
good.
okay, so here's how you get the best nourishing gems for the Ligarius wheel or something like that. I picked that weapon because it's my favorite in the game. But eventually I kind of got bored with doing the Bloodborne videos. That channel got not very big, like 1,100, 1,200 subscribers. That's where it peaked. And I kind of stopped doing stuff with it. And then about a year later, I started the grad student channel, and it was more or less an overnight success, if you can call it a success at this point. Like it surpassed my Bloodborne channel pretty much overnight, which was kind of frustrating because I spent like years to build it.
How it
So,
always happens sometimes.
all right, so let me ask about the growth of your channel. So, in the very beginning, when you were making casual Call of Duty videos on the channel, when did you start to see your channel pick up? Like it got more and more attention. When was that time? You would say.
Oh, it definitely wasn't like proper views and subscribers for sure wasn't until I made Dark Souls content. Because for Call of Duty, it was sort of, I think I had the max I had ever for Call of Duty after like 5 years of making videos was like 17,000 subs.
All right.
So not a lot. And it was mainly because people would see, because I was in a lot of like Call of Duty teams, and people would see you from there and kind of pass on the word or whatever. But it wasn't until I started making these videos for Dark Souls 3 right when it was coming out, basically on all the information that was being released for Dark Souls 3. I was making videos on like, this is what weapon we saw today and stuff like that.
Right.
And so that's really what sparked the interest to my channel for people. I think all the Dark Souls 3 videos, the really early ones. It wasn't until that I started gaining any subscribers or views.
At what point did you think, like, when you, because your channel is pretty big right now, it has a little over 500,000 subscribers. Do you ever feel like that's too much to handle? And do you ever feel like maybe I should walk away from this, or no, this is pretty much, this is what I want to do and I'm going to stick with the channel? What's your thinking on it? The reason I ask this question is because my brother sometimes dips his toe into social media, and he'll get like a little nervous if someone follows him and he's
Oh,
just like,
right.
then he goes back into hiding. But for you, so that's like just one person watching him. For you, you got like easily thousands. So do you ever feel self-conscious about that, or do you just not even think about it?
No, I think at this point I don't really think about. I've just it's been such a long thing that I've done, for such a long part of my life. It's almost like at this point, like making videos and content creation is like ingrained in like my life. It's like,
Yeah.
I guess when you do something for half your life, I guess it'd be like me asking you about like, do you still get nervous going to class and thinking about becoming a doctor and stuff like that? It's something you've been doing for so long that you almost don't really think about it too much, like the
I guess,
subscriber number and stuff.
yeah, I can see that. For me personally, I don't know. I know in the very, very beginning, I was very apprehensive about posting stuff online. But now that I'm, in my late 20s and my priorities are different, meaning that I focus, you don't really worry about silly things anymore by the time, you're 28, 29 years old. And then you just, so if you post something online and it gets a bunch of traffic and then it gets a bunch of comments on it, and maybe not all the comments are nice, it doesn't really affect me anymore because I've had people that I respect say not very nice things to my face.
Oh yeah, you
that
gotta
that kind
have
of,
a thick skin for this type of like making
yeah.
videos and stuff like that.
Did the negative comments ever affect you when you were posting? I imagine they don't affect you now.
No, definitely not now. But when I was a kid, they did, because that'll mess with a kid, like a teenager
Yeah.
growing up. Somebody telling you that you're garbage at a video game. You're like, man, I'm like a 16-year-old kid just trying to make videos, and
Yeah.
somebody posts, "You're the worst player I've ever seen." And I'm just like, dude, like chill,
I know.
And it for sure would mess with me when I was a kid, but all that helped me, I think, grow a thicker skin to now when I do still get comments like that. I had like a little situation with somebody on Twitter not too long ago who were like straight up like, I hope you lose every monetary value that you ever have in your life. And I'm like, God damn, man. Like, I think all I said was like, Bloodborne, people need to stop asking from software for Bloodborne Remastered. That's all I said. And that was their response to that. So you see it
Yeah.
a lot, and you 100% need to grow thick skin to be in this type of environment.
I'll tell you this much about the video or the comments that I get. 99% of the comments I get are very nice or just informative, neutral, we'll say. And then there's 1% that's fairly negative, but I divide the negative comments into two categories. The first category is, well, I have to ask myself the question first. Is this person worth listening to? Does this person have a point? If it's clear that they're just angry at the world and they're taking their frustration out on you, like the person that you just described, doesn't even faze me. Like when they say, "I hope you lose every monetization on every video that you," that's just a stupid person,
Yeah, yeah.
But then there's like the legitimate criticism that they put on your channel. It's like, this person has kind of a point. That's the type of criticism that I'm looking for, that I try to fess up to, because in mathematics you cannot dig your head into the sand and ignore um, what am I trying to say? Criticism that's valid, because you'll lose respect pretty quickly. They don't tolerate that, and that's something that I've really learned, um, being in the PhD and master's program at my previous university, is that you really can't be stubborn. We'll put it that way.
Oh,
Like
absolutely. Yeah.
for example, I made a recent video. It was about topology. It's another stupid subject in math. I say I shouldn't say stupid. It's just it's a
Oh
very
no, I
isolated.
understood it instantly. Yeah, yeah.
It's one of these subjects. It's like you either get it or you don't, and most people will read it and be like, "Why is this important?" And I kind of have that same mentality toward the subject, but I appreciate it more now. And I made a video on it, and then some guy in the comments said that my presentation of the material wasn't succinct with the, like I was defining some terms and he didn't like my definitions. And I was like, I copied this out of a textbook. What are you talking about? It's not my definitions, it's the definitions. And he just preferred his definitions as all. So I think this person probably has maybe a little bit of an attitude. I don't really know. Some math people get their pride wrapped up into it and they really shouldn't, because then they become hard to deal with.
Oh, you see that so often. I guess even on your side of things, you have almost the exact same thing. The amount of people that like I'll be streaming playing a certain way. I like playing my way, doing
Yeah.
things, sometimes idiotically because it's just more entertaining. And then I'll have people comment, why didn't you do it this and this and this way? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to play the same way you play or do the same thing you do, just because you do a certain thing doesn't mean that's the right thing, especially for a game like Elden Ring or Dark Souls, that there's so many ways to do something, right?
Yeah. I I know I definitely do things. When I played Elden Ring for the first time, I kind of got set into this way of just playing it this one way every single time, and I notice other people are playing a lot smarter than I am, but I don't really care that much to
Yeah.
play it the right way,
You got to
quote
play the
unquote.
way you just find fun, is
Mhm.
what I always say.
I always play the games for fun. I don't play to like, some people play the game to win. I play the game to fun. Like some people just are really they're almost like speedrunners in a way. They have this certain way that it must be done.
Yeah, they have like
That
steps. They have those steps that they want to follow. I want to go here and do this and grab this and this. It's like, just play it.
yeah.
See how you do.
For your channel, did you ever entertain the idea of doing it with other people, or has it always been a solo endeavor? Like, this is my channel, I want to do it this way, this is what I want to do. Or did you ever think about bringing in like a friend or your brother? Because I know your brother's a fairly successful YouTuber as well.
I guess I was never against the idea of like doing a video or something with somebody, but never like the whole channel. I make a lot of videos with friends or the occasional video with my brother, even though I haven't done one in a while, which I really should. But it's for sure always been like my thing.
Mm-hmm. Can you describe a little bit about like what the assembly line looks like for a video? Like when you sit down and say, I want to make a YouTube video, and then what are the steps that you take until you get to the end where the video is on YouTube ready for someone like me to watch? What's the process
Uh,
for
right.
you?
So typically I live stream. So a lot of my content, most of my content at this point comes from live streaming. And I feel like that's pretty common now. Like it wasn't happening a lot. And I felt kind of bad that I wasn't making like specifically unique YouTube content. So now I'll like live stream and then I'll know that either is that part of a series that I'm doing or is this its own thing? And then I'll edit that. But it is kind of like I guess it depends like how long the video is going to be. Do I have like 3 hours worth of footage that I need to edit down? It's like one, 30-20 minute video, or is it like 3 hours of footage is going to be 5 videos? It is a little bit different, but typically it's streaming it, recording it, and then editing it, thumbnails, coming up with some type of dumb title, and
Do you
then
make
uploading
everything
it.
like thumbnails and the editor? So you are your own editor?
Yeah, I do everything.
Oh, okay. What's the making the video? What is your favorite part? For me, when I was a very, very small YouTuber, and I technically still am, but when I was a micro YouTuber with only hundreds of subs, um, my favorite part was always making the thumbnails, believe it or not. It wasn't actually playing the game or doing all that other stuff like editing. Making the thumbnail was my favorite part. What's your favorite part of the process?
I actually do really like making thumbnails, but unfortunately, YouTube's moving towards a certain direction that is like the thumbnail making is less fun. Because I like putting a bunch of chaos in my thumbnails and putting random stuff. I used to do it more, but there's a very noticeable dip in views when you do that. It's moving to a lot more simple. So I guess it's in a way it's easier but less fun to do the thumbnails now.
Mhm.
Uh, I love streaming though, and I like playing a video game live and talking with chat. So I would say like recording is probably my favorite.
I see. Um, I find it, I have live streamed before and I've talked to like the people in the chat, which usually maxes out at probably like 4 people. I don't get that. I never got that many people in my chat, but you have a lot of people. This might be a dumb question, but how do you manage to play the game and respond to the chat in a succinct manner? Or does it just come naturally? Like, maybe can't respond to everybody, but I'll respond to some people in the chat. Like, I don't like managing both at the same time. What about you?
Um, it can be a little bit difficult sometimes, especially like I feel like that's a big reason why some people will think I can be like not great at a game. There's a very noticeable difference for me when I concentrate and don't speak and play video games. And like I guess you could consider like try harding a boss
Yeah.
or something like that. And I'll typically get them really fast if I do that. So you got to balance it in a specific way to try to be decent. Uh, I like more interacting with chat, and if somebody says something funny, I'll repeat it or makes a story out of it that entertains me. I guess everything is whatever entertains me that I see in chat that'll be funny to repeat is
Yeah.
typically what I go with.
I think probably so in the very beginning when I started playing Dark Souls, I went to YouTube just to look up, see who's making Dark Souls videos, and obviously you came up, Lost My Sanity, Chase the Bro, Fighter PL, all those famous guys. I think Fightin' Cowboy was the very first channel I discovered because I needed guides
Oh
to
yeah,
figure out how
he's
to
the guide guy for sure.
absolutely. So he was, I think, the first one. But of all of those guys, I would say that you're the only one I still routinely listen to because, uh, well, I mean, I think you're the funniest one. I like your commentary, is
Oh,
to
thank
is to
you.
put it to put it succinctly. I guess my next dumb question is how are you so funny? Like, how are you so quick witted with the inside jokes? Because I still don't understand the weasel lore. You mentioned weasels so much in Adventures of the Worst Invader, and I've yet to figure out the origins of the weasels.
uh Damn, dude. I don't know, man. I guess it's just uh I don't know. I don't want it to sound like cocky or anything, but I guess it comes natural. Like it's just I like making dumb stories up. And what I like about the channel was there's so many little inside jokes that it might be kind of hard to get into. Like you said, if you hear me talk about weasels and the weasel wars and the eagle wars, like people are gonna be like, "What the hell is he talking about?"
Yeah.
you know but I feel like once you watch more videos and you tune into a live stream, it's almost like it can be like, in a dumb way of saying it, like lore of
Mhm.
the channel
Broad
and
lore.
of characters I've created. I love making characters and playing with them and making a story out of them rather than just playing through the game. I have so many characters. Like a Bloodborne character I made was a half weasel god, so I just used a fist weapon that is like claws, and her
I think
journey
that was
was to
Connie, right?
ascend. That was Connie the
Connie and
weasel,
Ronnie.
and her goal was to ascend and become a god and become one of the grand weasels. Which, again, saying this sounds absolutely nuts, but it's almost like I like the lore side of it, and coming up with dumb stories and funny stories that make me laugh. It's just everything I say makes me laugh, and I'm glad it also makes people laugh. So that's good.
I really enjoy your commentary. How come I know you've been asked this before, but I guess I'll ask again. It's like how come you don't do like face cam recording for your videos? Because I know that in the thumbnails, if you put like a face that makes a really big expression, those thumbnails tend to get clicked on more than videos that don't have that. This is what I've heard. So I'm curious, what how come you haven't done that?
I guess it's just more. It's a mixture of. I am always a little self-conscious about myself, in terms of like, what people will say about me. Like that's the only thing that kind of gets to me sometimes would be like personal attacks on me.
Yeah,
But as time has gone on, I've cared less and less because I've done more videos with my face and
yeah.
like live streams. But uh, it's just I like editing videos in a specific way, and I feel like face cam sometimes doesn't add to that. So if I play a horror game and the point sometimes is to be quiet and facial expressions take the forefront of that, I like doing face cam for those stuff. But if it's uh Elden Ring PvP video where there's a lot of cuts are a big thing. So if you cut from point to another with your face, it's more noticeable. And I like sometimes for things to kind of flow nicely where they don't notice those cuts. And if you see like my facial expression completely change or my head change, it's a lot more noticeable.
I see. Um, what kind of future goals do you have with the channel? Where do you think you want to take the channel in the next 5 years or so? Do you want to
Ooh.
do what kind of video games do you? Because you started in Call of Duty, that was the focus of the channel, and then it was, Dark Souls, Invasions, other FromSoft related titles. What do you think is next for the channel prod?
That's an interesting question. I've thought about that often myself, especially like now. Um, I would love to not be exclusive to the Souls games and Call of Duty, freaking Elden Ring and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would love to branch out, and I've been trying a lot more, and it's, kind of had like medium success and sometimes does really well. Like horror games and I guess variety, and just I would love to be able to play what I want and like whenever I want, rather than I gotta play a Souls mod.
Right. I think your most viewed video on your channel isn't it Resident Evil or something?
It is, yeah. The Resident Evil 7 videos that I did like a couple years back were just I truly have no idea how or why they got so many views, but I feel very lucky because it brought a lot of people who like horror games, and then I started playing more horror games, and then I realized there's a certain type of content that I can offer in the horror genre that I feel like doesn't exist too much. More comedy based than like straight up being scared.
Right. Do you think that how much do you think luck played into your channel's success? Obviously, you work really hard. I see it. Even the minimal amount of work that I did for my old Bloodborne channel and the channel that I have now, I can see how much work it takes to make a sustainable YouTube channel that brings in revenue. So, how much do you think of it, your success was to you working hard versus being in the right place at the right time?
Oh, I was definitely tons of luck, 100%. But it's like it's one of those things, right? Like you got to be ready if you ever get lucky. You gotta already be putting in hard work, which I was. I was uploading daily videos and making content every day. And I still remember the video. It was like a PvP video. I was using the Cathedral Knight Greatsword, and there was just something about the thumbnail that caught people's attention. And like that video blew up. And that was like the first video that for me that went like crossed 100,000 views. And at this point has like, I think like 300,000, which is not crazy compared to a lot of the other videos. But for being that early on, when I barely had like maybe like 30,000 subs, like it brought so much attention to my channel where I just, at that point, it was like, okay, awesome. Now I'm already doing these things that are every single day. So the content's there. It's just, we got to get some people watching. So for sure, most content creators, when they like blow up, it's mostly luck based, I would say.
I see. Can you describe a little bit about like how much revenue a video will make? Like, for example, how much revenue does a video that gets only a couple thousand views get versus a video that gets tens of thousands of views versus one that gets like 100,000 plus?
Right. Okay. It definitely varies quite a bit. It also actually matters like what you play. So because I play a lot of older games, my revenue, the amount of money you make per 1,000 views and stuff like that can be a lot lower compared to somebody who plays, let's just say Fortnite, that is insanely popular and huge and everywhere. But the difference
I actually
can
didn't know
be,
that.
yeah, it's 100% like if you play something that's newer, where a lot of people are, let's just say Final Fantasy, for people who like will actually get a lot of views for something like Final Fantasy, because it's new. All these advertisers want to throw their ads at the new stuff and the big stuff. So when it comes to something like me playing Dark Souls 1, I think if the video got the same views, like let's just say a Dark Souls 1 video and like a new Final Fantasy video, the new Final Fantasy video will make like double the money.
Really, it's that much? Like that big? Okay.
For sure, though, it's like relative to it is like maybe like 100, and then a couple hundred. Like it can be sometimes for a huge video that gets like hundreds of thousands of views, that can be thousands of dollars. So the difference is for sure pretty big if a video goes like viral and does super well compared to like it gets like 10,000 views.
I see. I'm paying more attention to it because if I can keep the views up on my grad student channel, then I may have to. I mean, technically, it's already monetized, but I don't really make videos for the sake of making money. I make them because I wanted something to look back on in the future. Like it's almost a diary. It's an open diary of my time in the PhD program, because I noticed on YouTube there's nothing there kind of is something like that, but not exactly what I was doing. What I'm doing is kind of like watching someone get their doctorate in real time, whereas other people are kind of like after the fact, or they spent some time, you know, in a program like that, and then they're just commenting on it later. So that was the main reason I started uploading to this channel. But let me see
Yeah,
what else.
I would say it was pretty much the same for me. In the beginning, as a 14-year-old, I was like, I'm not gonna make money off of this. I wanted to make cool Call of Duty sniping montages, like it's only now when it's now a job that I have to kind of be more careful. But in general, I still do whatever the hell I want. In terms of like if I want to play a video game, I'll play it.
I see. Do you have a, so obviously your main source of revenue is from the YouTube channel. Do you have a job outside of YouTube that you do, or is it just all YouTube?
No, it is pretty much just YouTube and Twitch, and then that's pretty much it.
I see. We are coming up on an hour. How are you doing on time? Do you want to wrap up shortly, or
I'm okay. If you
because
got some more questions, you throw
I
them
have a
out.
couple more, but I don't want to
Yeah.
waste too much of our time.
I'm okay.
Okay, cool. So what did you do? What kind of games did you play before Call of Duty? Because I remember before, you know, Black Ops, for example, because I'm thinking of 2010. That's when Black Ops came out. I remember that game was like huge at the time. But before Call of Duty, what kind of games did you play? Because Guitar Hero was really popular, and that was the thing that I did
Oh
before.
yeah,
When I
I
was in
was
middle
exactly
school.
the same. I was all over Guitar Hero 3.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I actually I thought about it before, and really I didn't start gaming like crazy until I played Call of Duty. That was my first addiction to any type of video game. It was like Call of Duty 4 was
Mhm.
probably the first to kind of hit me like that.
Did you play Assassin's Creed?
No, not really. I remember I kind of funny because I had a bunch of Guitar Hero games, and I remember trading them in to get the Assassin's Creed games at GameStop, back when they gave you more than 6 cents a game. And
Yeah.
I bought a bunch of Assassin's Creed games. I tried playing the first one. It had a scratch in it. It didn't work. And
Oh,
then I played the second one, and I freaking loved the second one. So I did play a little bit, but the main game that I played was Call of Duty and shooters in general, like Battlefield and stuff.
I see. I don't know. The first person genre, like first person shooter genre, that was the dominant genre during that time because everyone was trying to be Call of Duty at that time. Just never really appealed to me. I didn't really care for it. The Uncharted video games that were on PlayStation 3 were what I pretty much exclusively played, and then no one else played with me because no one else really played Uncharted. But I was pretty stubborn with what I liked, as like, this is what I like, this is what I'm playing. And they're like, okay, well, I mean, we don't play that. I'm like, all right, well, see you guys later.
Yeah,
But
I was on the other side being like, yo, come play some COD with us. And you're like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna play Uncharted.
did you, when you were a child, what kind of video games did you play, like before middle school?
Mainly I didn't have a lot of consoles. I had the PS1. Um, so I used to play I did play single player games. I played a lot of movie games for some reason because I think those probably caught my attention as a kid. Like I
Yeah.
played the Scorpion King game when I was a kid, which was awful, but I remember it being awesome when I was a kid. Had a lot of demos, so I played tons of demos for the PS1, PS2. My neighbor, I remember having Super Mario, and she used to have a SNES, and never let me touch any of her Mario saves because she thought as kids we would just
You're gonna
mess it
delete
up.
it.
Yeah, we're gonna mess it up. We're gonna ruin her lives, get her killed, and stuff like that. So she never let us play that, but she had a Kirby game, which I absolutely loved.
I see. I didn't play too much of Nintendo. I was pretty much always been a PlayStation guy. I grew up with a PS2, but we had PS1 games that were on it. So some of those old PS1 games were very close and dear to me, and they still are. They pretty much see. This is what I mean. I pretty much stayed in that era, even when I got into the middle schools. Like everyone else was playing new games, and I was like, "What about this game from 1998, guys?" They're like, "Dude, that game is so old. You should play something new." I was like, "He's like, yeah, but I like it."
Yeah.
That's the kind of mentality I had. It was hard to relate that way, but I did play some of the newer games like Guitar Hero. I got really into that, and then Uncharted after that, and then there was a lull there where I didn't really play any games, and then that's when I kind of discovered Dark Souls when I was in graduate school for the first time. Now I'm in graduate school for the second time.
I
I
love
guess
it. Like now when you're like smarter as an adult, that's when you get into like Dark Souls. 'Cause I do think that's more of a is that a game kids play a lot? You know, like kids will go for like the shooters a lot, I think.
honestly, I don't even know how someone would be able to beat Dark Souls if they didn't have the internet. Like how would kids be able to figure out if you smack this wall, then a whole nother level, this whole new area with a boss, nameless king, and all that stuff is
Yeah,
in this area.
it's
It's
kind
like
of wild.
you can't figure that out by yourself. That's insane. That was a lot of the thoughts I had when I played the first time and I had to look up stuff. I was like, there's a crow that will give you like free food if you drop down a chunk of dung pie or something.
Yeah, there's so many little secrets that it's kind of mind blowing to be honest sometimes.
Do you think that we'll get a pickle pea crow type thing in the Elden Ring DLC? Because we didn't get one in Elden Ring.
I hope so. That'd be awesome. See her return, I'd love it.
Do you think what's something that you wish From Software would stop doing? Like they've done it, like something that keeps showing up in every installment, and you're just like every time it shows up, you're just like, Miyazaki, you need to stop this. No one likes this. Quit telling us we like it because we don't.
Do you have one? I'm trying to think.
Well, I think a lot of people always complain about the poison swamps because every
Right.
game has a poison swamp. But I wouldn't necessarily say we hate the poison swamp, but we do like to say we hate the poison swamp.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think anybody like I personally don't. I've never looked at them and like, oh, here we go, another one. It's more like it shows up and you go, Miyazaki, look at you and your poison swamps. Yeah, I can't really think of anything I would hope for them to stop, to be honest.
Mm. I can't really think of much. Well, you play a lot of PvP, and I noticed that the net code sometimes is really frustrating where you're in the middle of trying to kill the host and then they start lagging. And I don't
Oh
really know
yeah.
if something like that can be truly fixed, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't
Maybe
think I think because of the peer-to-peer, if they're just far away, there's just no way of stopping it. And I think they're not gonna divulge a bunch of resources to like dedicated servers and stuff like that. So I don't think that's something that it's ever gonna get fixed.
yeah, I didn't think as much. What was actually before? I know we talked a lot about the FromSoft catalog, but I really wanted to start with like your introduction to the series. Like, when did you discover the Soulsborne trilogy, or not trilogy, but the Soulsborne games first? Like, what was your foray into it?
Oh, that was pretty early on. I think like Dark Souls 2 was out already. I think Bloodborne was coming out or like was out already, but they gave Dark Souls 1 away for free. It was like the game of the month for the Xbox 360. And me and a friend knew about it because of YouTube and knew it was a very notoriously difficult game. And I remember trying it multiple times and not being able to really get into it. One time, like I was like, all right, I'm gonna sit down and do it and get good at it. I couldn't get past the first boss. And that took me away from that series for a couple months. And then I came back because I was like, I saw it and I was just like, man, I really want to play it. So me and my friend played it separately, but we were in like party chat together talking like because there's one thing that we do and it was Ornstein and Smo. So we would often make this joke, and I didn't do it without a YouTube tutorial, by the way. Like I needed that like help of like, this is the best starting class. And I chose like the Pyromancer, which is like the best for early game. And yeah, it took a long process of me and my friend both playing together at the same time to kind of keep me motivated enough to continue on and struggle through it.
It feels like a lot of us have similar stories with our introduction with the Souls-like, because you said something that sounded basically like what my experience was, because I had like the PS4 had just turned 1 year old, I think, at the point. It was a brand new console, and I was interested in seeing like what new games they were going to come out with it. And Bloodborne was like at the time one of the killer apps, I think was what they call them. Is if you're gonna get a console, you need to get PS4 because Bloodborne's on it, and that's the big main reason to get a PS4 is just so you can play this one game. So there was a lot of hype behind Bloodborne, so I looked into it a little bit, and I would say that that was my first real introduction. I had heard the word Dark Souls, like the title, before, but I didn't know anything about it. And it wasn't until like the following year I decided to actually buy Bloodborne and play it. And I didn't get very far. I got to the Witch of Hemwick, and then I thought the boss was too hard.
Yeah.
Which is embarrassing to admit, but I got stuck on that boss, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I think it was interesting, but I just couldn't handle the difficulty. And then later that same year, I bought Dark Souls 3 because I knew it was like really closely related to Bloodborne. And the same story, I got to the tree boss, the curse-rotted Greatwood, couldn't beat it, and then I just gave up and walked away. And it wasn't until like a full year later, maybe another year after that, where I decided to actually sit down and play it. And that's kind of where my obsession with the games came from.
Yeah, I wonder how many people started off and like hit a wall in like playing by themselves or even with a tutorial where they're just like I can't do it. I'm just gonna I give up for now at least.
What would you say is your favorite build in general for the Soulsborne games? Like when you're playing Dark Souls 3, if you had to, like, do you prefer pure strength build, pure dex build, or a quality build? Do you like to throw in some faith, run a maybe not pure faith build, although I do like faith builds. Pure faith, pure intelligence. What do you like?
Oh, I love the big chunky like strength builds. I love the giant great sword. Typically I will often like going strength.
From your playthroughs, you tend to rock the Great Club a lot in your playthroughs.
Yeah, I actually really like that weapon. I think it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, just carrying around a big stick, whacking people. It seems good. Okay, so let's wrap up here. Let me ask maybe one or two more questions, and then
Sounds good.
We'll wrap it up. Did I ask everything actually?
Yeah, we got everything out of the way.
Yeah, I was looking at this list. We were jumping all around the video.
Yeah.
This list. I was like, we talked about everything. I guess I really am interested in knowing more about post high school, because you said you didn't finish high school and then you didn't go in those last couple years. For me, I knew I definitely was going to go straight into college. Like I knew from very early on that that's what I was going to do. Didn't think twice about it. When you were out of high school officially, what was your plan? What kind of conversations did you have with yourself, like moving forward? Like how were you answering the big questions? Like, what am I going to do now that school's out?
Oh man, I guess
if this hits too close to home, you don't have to answer, but I am kind of curious.
I guess I didn't have another solution. Like I guess I didn't know really. I was trying to look for work. I remember because specifically like asking my mom if she could, because she worked at a supermarket back in the day. Luckily now me and my brother do well enough that we took her out of her job and we take care of her, and she lives with us and do everything, you know. But back then she was a cashier at a supermarket, and I remember my brother was working at the same supermarket. Oh no, at a different supermarket, but like the same branch, you know. And I was gonna do the same thing that he was gonna do, and I was trying to tell her to see if she could get me a job, and she told me to just keep doing YouTube. She just told me to not get into that cycle and just focus on trying to do this, and which is just incredible, you know, like that just doesn't happen with people. But she told me just keep trying it. And when my brother was working, he then bought a capture card, and a couple of years later is kind of like I just kept trying to do YouTube, which you know, it could have seemed like I was like a bum, you know. By the time I was like 20, I still didn't really have any type of job or anything like that. And I guess it had been like right around when Dark Souls 3 came out, which at this point I cannot remember the date, but it took quite a while before I started making any type of money on YouTube. But I guess it hit early enough that I did consider doing that. Like I said, I tried getting that a job at my mom's supermarket, and luckily it happened soon enough that I didn't have to think about it. It took like 6-7 years for anything to happen, but it still was like early enough that I didn't think about another type of work.
Well, I mean, you kind of answered this question already, but if YouTube never worked out, do you think that that's what you would be doing now, is working at, or do you think you might try and do something else, like maybe go back to school or something? Because I know you said you
like
you
if it
weren't
never
looking.
worked out, or if
Okay.
like it doesn't. What do you mean? Like if it never worked out back then, or like if things
Yeah,
stop now?
if you weren't doing YouTube, what would you be doing today? You think?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I probably would be working at some type of supermarket, some easy job, you know. Like again, not saying it's easy, more like something easy to get.
Mhm.
Yeah, something that just probably didn't require a lot of thinking. To be honest, like I have no idea. You know, things could have gone a different way. I could have, you know, gone back to school, but I guess you just never know. So it's kind of hard to answer that one.
If you ever, I'm serious though. You ever want to do math? I will hook
Oh
you up.
yeah, I'll come right to you 100%. I'll know exactly where to go when I want to go get my PhD.
Exactly. Me and
Yeah.
Dr. Prod, we can write papers.
Which would that I mean, there you go. And now I know we know the future if this whole YouTube thing stops working out.
Do you care if I ask you what your first name is?
Oh, it's Rudy.
Rudy. I think I had saw on Instagram, because I also follow you on Instagram. Even though I rarely use Instagram, I barely touch it. I pretty much do everything on YouTube and then
Yeah.
Facebook for, friends and family. But I think I had saw you had mentioned once your name was Rudy.
Yeah,
So,
I like giving people fake names often, but it's you know, I think I have it on maybe even Twitter as well, but I have it on Instagram anyway. So people find it and like try to look for it, they'll know, but I do like giving people fake names and ages a lot on YouTube and Twitch just because it entertains me.
I used to use a pseudonym on my Bloodborne channel. I would tell people my name was Les, like Leslie or something. And
What an odd name to choose
I,
too.
I don't know where I came up with it. I just came up with this fake name because this might sound weird, but a really long time ago, I had a dream of being a cartoonist because I really liked Mike Judge, who created Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill. You probably are familiar with those shows.
Yeah.
Um, I was really inspired by his story, and so I tried my hand at being a cartoonist, and obviously I didn't really get that far. I didn't give it an honest attempt though, but um, it was the name of a character I had made up, and the name of the character became the name of my YouTube channel. So that was that's more or less where the name came from. But
You know what?
hopefully,
Maybe we'll start calling you Les now on here as well.
okay, we can call myself Les. That's fine. I think that probably is going to wrap it up. Now,
Ah, perfect.
usually for these YouTube videos, I interview math people, and I always finish by asking them what their favorite number is. But I'm going to make you an honorary mathematician, so I'm going to ask you what your favorite number is and why.
8.
How come?
I don't know. I just like when it loops and you turn on your side and see the infinity symbol and it looks cool. You know, I don't know why. I've always thought about 8 since I was a kid. That's been my favorite number.
Nice. I think it's one above mine. My favorite number is 7.
Oh, really? Is there any
Mhm.
specific reason?
Yes, I'll have to edit this out of the video, but I'll tell you.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, so very selfish reason for liking 7. No great mathematical property or anything. Just all selfishness. It's all about me. It's my number.
Does everybody who answered, they always have like a mathematical reason why a number is their favorite?
Surprisingly, no. A lot of people are just like, who cares about numbers?
Ah,
So it's like, I think there's different branches of math. I think the number theorists, they have really interesting answers because they study numbers. They love the patterns of numbers. But a lot of mathematicians like myself don't really do math for the sake of numbers. We don't,
yeah.
like, I don't really care about numbers that much either. We're more interested in recognizing patterns and showing some properties hold that, under certain conditions, you can say some pretty amazing things. So it's more about ideas rather than the numbers themselves.
Right. That's interesting.
So, all right, Prod. It was very, very nice to speak with you.
It was nice to talk to you too, man. I appreciate the talk. It's been pretty awesome.
I'm surprised that you agreed to meet with me in the first place, because this was like the first time I actually reached out to someone that I wanted to speak with, and I'm very grateful you said that you would do it.
Oh, funny enough, this is actually like the first like interview, I guess you could say, that I've ever done. So there you go. You have the honors of being the my first.
I'm honored to be your first. Unfortunately, you're my 10th.
Oh,
Okay, but you were my favorite.
well,
Honestly.
thank you.
All right, Prod. I'll see you in a future video.
All right, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, goodbye.
Goodbye.